Is the looming withdrawal from the International Criminal Court in the best interest of South Africa? And how is this action likely to impact the country's standing on continental and global matters? Has the 2002 Rome Statute lived up to its intended expectations? And is the ICC selective in its application of the law? What time is it? It's question time. Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Mpho Tseidu. When South Africa joined the ICC, which is the International Criminal Court, in 1998, the country had just emerged from the Apartheid-era, which was declared a crime against humanity by the United Nations. 17 years later, the recent African National Congress National General Council has resolved that the country must withdraw from the ICC. The bone of contention here is said to be the failure by South Africa to arrest President Omar al-Bashir when he attended the African Union Summit in June here in Johannesburg. But are other African signatories likely to follow in the event of South Africa eventually withdrawing from the ICC? A reminder that we are live, and therefore you can call us and air your views. The numbers to dial 089-110-4210 if you're outside the borders, 002-789-110-4210. Our Twitter handle is @QuestionTime24. My guest today, Dr. Wadisani Sydney Mufamadi, is a director of the University of Johannesburg School of Leadership. He's also a scholar and practitioner of international relations and diplomacy. But also on Skype, we have our colleague Jack Parrock, who is in Brussels. Gentlemen, welcome to Question Time.
Thank you, Mr. Tseidu.
Jack, let me start with you quickly. Tomorrow, what is happening at the ICC?
So tomorrow there's a very complicated case in the Kenya trials. The Deputy President of Kenya, William Ruto, is still under trial. The case against the President, Uhuru Kenyatta, has been dropped a number of months ago. But there's been a political push from the African Union and other countries like Kenya and Uganda to try and get this trial ended against William Ruto. So it starts again tomorrow, and there's going to be some very complicated and fiery rhetoric, we expect, from the prosecutor's office, but also from the Kenyan side and the defendant's side as well.
What is likely to happen, though? I mean, do you see this continuing, or is there no application to get the charges withdrawn?
There is a strong application to get the charges withdrawn, but I spoke to the prosecutor a couple of weeks ago, and she said that really the political pressure and the politicization of this case won't actually help it, but the legal channels must be gone through in order to get it withdrawn if the charges were to be withdrawn. Now, seeing the case against Uhuru Kenyatta, the president of Kenya, withdrawn a number of months ago was a big thing, and it was seen as a big failure for the International Criminal Court. So there is some expectation that the Kenyan government can do it again, William Ruto.
And the last time they appeared together, and there was quite a huge entourage of supporters and people who were there to basically, say, hands off our president, hands off our deputy president or vice president, rather. Do you expect another large contingent of supporters this time around?
No, that won't happen just for the William Ruto case. When the Kenyan president, Uhuru Kenyatta, came to The Hague, I have to say I've followed the International Criminal Court proceedings for a while now, and I've never seen anything like it. There were MPs from the Kenyan government, there were huge supporters from civil society as well there to support him, and eventually the case got dropped. It was more complicated with Uhuru Kenyatta, but William Ruto is still charged with crimes against humanity. That trial is still ongoing, and he has to attend the court much more frequently than President Kenyatta did.
Jack, thank you very much for your time. Hope we'll catch up with you sometime in the future so we can get an update of what is happening there. Okay. Dr. Mufamadi, here we are. Another African leader appearing tomorrow at the ICC. But firstly, perhaps let's look here at home. The ANC goes to the NGC and they say, look, we are done. Government must withdraw. Is this in the best interest of South Africa?
Maybe we need to bring context to this discussion.
Yeah.
Firstly, it's important to remember that the International Criminal Court, which was established in terms of the Rome Statute that came into force in 2008, has had a disconcerting career. To start with, the Rome Statute was brought into life without the assent of big powers in the international system. The Americans, the Chinese consider themselves exempt from its norms, as well as its rules. In the case of the United States of America, as you know, Bill Clinton gave in to domestic opposition to the signing of the Rome Statute, both from the Senate and the Pentagon. After him, George Bush deployed soldiers to Iraq and to Afghanistan, to whom neither the law nor the Geneva Convention apply. Now we have Obama as the incumbent president. He is escalating drone strikes in Asia, in Yemen, in Africa, basically sentencing people to death without due process. And all these things happen in a context where the ICC claims to speak with singular authority on behalf of humanity, but nothing happens either by way of holding a big power like the United States to account for actions of this kind. And I'm saying, therefore, that you will then understand this as the backdrop to what we are about to discuss.
Yes. Now, coming back to South Africa, the ANC says, okay, we need to get out of this. Is that good for South Africa?
Well, I've listened to spokespersons, official spokespersons of the African National Congress, who say that they remain committed to working with everybody else in the world, including the International Criminal Court. But through this action, they are hoping to induce course correction on the part of the International Criminal Court. I think it needs to be said that in and of itself, this action runs the risk of remaining, a hopeful fantasy. It has to, yes, it's an important step that was taken by the African National Congress, but if it is to work, it must be part of a multiplicity of measures which include continent-wide activism and advocacy for peace, involving governments on the continent, the population of Africa, transnational activism for peace, because I'm saying in the absence of that, we should not expect very serious response from the powers that be in global terms.
But is the ICC a good institution to belong to?
Well, yes, it is, to the extent that the intention to establish the ICC was a noble one. The drive was to end impunity and to bring about an era of accountability. But to the extent I'm saying that there has been selective application of the law, as it were, and as you've seen, since actually its inception, it has prioritized rather the prosecution of Africans.
Hold it there. I want us to take a quick break. When we return, indeed, let's look at some of the examples why you're saying the ICC's application of the law has been selective, and perhaps to check in general as to have they basically lived up to the founding principles of what they are supposed to achieve. And we'll be taking your calls. The number to dial is 089-110-4210. The Twitter handle @QuestionTime24.
SABC brings to you Rugby World Cup 2015.
Let's do this.
The road to greatness is not an easy one. It's rough, tough, and full of barriers. And there's only one way to master it. Never, ever stop. Dauntless. The all-new Audi Q7.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. My guest today is Dr. Sidney Mufamadi, who is the director at the University of Johannesburg. He's the director there at the School of Leadership. And Tebogo, you're calling us from Garankuwa. Welcome to Question Time.
Hello, Mpo. Thank you. Can you hear me, Mpo?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Okay. Mpo, I think this is a moral debate.
Moral?
Yes, moral debate. Okay, let's say, what if the ICC is selective? What if the ICC is selective? Then what? What I'm trying to say is that, what about leaders in Africa? As Africans, what about leaders in Africa who are doing, wrong things to their people? To the people that they lead. Who is going to account? Like, who is going to make them account?
Okay.
For what they are doing? Because of if I'm a black man and I tell another black man that no, what you're doing is not right, my mind has been colonized, I'll be called a traitor. If it's a white man, they are racist. So I don't know who should say what. So we must just keep quiet and let politics control our lives.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, that's another question.
Don't follow the question that well.
Well, if South Africa or Africa withdraws from the ICC, who's going to guard the guards?
Well, it's a good question. You see, let's stay with the ICC for a moment.
Yeah.
I'm saying the ICC has so far indicted African leaders. There are the best-known cases of Thomas Lubanga of the DRC, Charles Taylor, the ex-president of Liberia, for crimes committed in Sierra Leone. Now, Africa has traditionally been a theater for Western experimentation with new governance techniques, economic doctrines, and that can't be right. The question that has just been asked is correct. Who is the watchdog? Not only over Africans, but over anybody in the world who commits acts that warrant ICC attention. It has been the inaction of the ICC which left it bereft of moral authority. The pushback that you are seeing, which is not just from South Africa, but from the African continent, and the global revulsion, for instance, for drone strikes, and the growing anti-Americanism in the result, tells you that if the ICC was even-handed, doing what it should do, without fear or favor, then we would be having a mechanism that is capable of helping all of us.
Hold it there. Abel, you're calling us from Mpumalanga.
Yes. Hello?
Yes, go ahead, Abel.
Yes, I'm just greeting you, Mpo, and my former minister with me.
Yes.
My problem is, like Tebogo was saying, is putting a race issue in this thing. Maybe it can be a race issue, but we find that the processes are not consistent. If maybe he's saying a black person, a black leader is mistreating his people or is killing people, what about a white leader, like maybe George W. Bush? You name them, a lot of them, they kill innocent people. But because they have powers, like the Americans have powers, the British have powers, they are not part of this everything. And the judges in there, you check them, they are mostly Africans. And these Africans sometimes, when they become schooled or educated, they tend to forsake their Africanism.
Okay.
Hence, it becomes not fair for us to say, let us continue becoming a member of ICC.
Okay.
So that's why maybe I'll support the ICC that is coming with the ANC to say, no, because this thing is not working for us as Africans, let us move away from it. Thanks.
All right.
Well, there's nothing non-African about the ICC, because the ICC is supposed to be a creature of all countries in the world that embrace the Rome Statute.
Yes.
So it belongs to all of us. It must become what we want to make of it. But what we are saying for now is that the big powers are using it as an instrument for prosecuting their enemies and protecting their friends. I mean, you look at Central Asia, there are governments who are guilty of perpetrating violence against their opponents.
Yes.
And their cases are not referred to the ICC, whereas African cases readily get referred to the ICC by the UN Security Council.
Has money not played a role here, whereby if African countries say we do not support the ICC or we are not signatories of this ICC, some foreign aid will then perhaps be withheld? But whilst you're thinking about that, let's take Temba. Temba, you're calling us from Limpopo.
Yes, sir. Yes, good afternoon to the former minister and you, sir. I just wanted to raise the question of countries like Israel that will bomb and kill many people like in Palestine, as we've seen. And those actually cases are not going to the ICC. This former Minister of Official Defense in Israel went to Britain, was not actually arrested. Now I'm just trying to see why is the ICC not even handling all the crises in the world. Okay. You look at how the Americans brought down the plane, the Iranian national plane, but when in this country where they brought down the rebels, whatever brought down a plane, they bring actually Russia. My question is that is the ICC not able to be even-handed, treat all countries and all actually leaders actually the same, especially in Palestine? Okay. Thank you very much.
I think the case that the listener just cited, it's a relevant case, the case of Israel, You'll recall that the Israeli government refused to cooperate with a fact-finding mission, which was led by our own Richard Goldstone. And they refused with impunity because of the manner in which they feature in the strategic calculus of the Western powers. They chose to be friendly to Western interests, and for that reason, they can do whatever they please.
Agri, you are calling us from Mpumalanga. Welcome.
That's right. Can you hear me, Mpo?
Yes.
Yeah. Mpo, right, you can hear me. The problem there is we, as Africans, are sending these people who are perpetrators to the ICC. It's not the Europeans or whoever, it's we ourselves that are sending them. We must not forget that. Thank you.
Okay, which is true actually, because I mean, you look at there was a summit of the AU which had to be shifted from Malawi, I think, because Malawi had said, you host it here, if al-Bashir comes, we're going to arrest him. You know, so indeed what Agri is saying is also very true, that Africans are actually getting their fellow brothers and sisters arrested.
Yeah, although I think we should not generalize, because I think the picture is a mixed one. You see, for instance, if you take the case of Darfur, which was referred to the ICC by the Security Council, I happen to have served as an advisor to the AU panel, high-level panel on Darfur. And in that capacity, we interacted with the national stakeholders of Darfur and Sudan, who indicated that they were interested in finding, through dialogue, a way to a peaceful future in their country. And as part of that search, the quest for peace, they saw President al-Bashir as an important player in that dialogue.
I want us to talk about something, I don't know, the militarization of peace, as you would say. But let's take Ewan. Ewan, you're in Mpumalanga.
Oh.
Yes.
If Zimbabweans are starving, you cannot come to Jacob Zuma in South Africa and ask him why are Zimbabweans starving and put him into some test there. You can only ask Robert Mugabe. The ICC has got no jurisdiction over America, England, Israel, all those countries. Those countries did not sign up to the ICC. Africans, of their own volition, they did so. Nobody put a gun on their Adam's apple and say, sign here. They themselves, of their own volition, they did sign. So it is disingenuous to keep on asking the ICC about America and pretend. Please, they must get another valid reason of pulling out. This thing of mentioning America and ICC, like I've put the example of Mugabe and the Zimbabweans and Jacob Zuma. So Jacob Zuma has got no jurisdiction over Zimbabweans. The ICC, same thing, has got no jurisdiction over America, Israel, and all those countries. Africans must stop killing their own people.
Okay.
Well, it's correct. Issues of jurisdiction are very important. You see, the United States of America did not assent to the Rome Statute because it wanted to give itself the latitude unilaterally to intervene in other countries forcefully. Look at what they are doing in Somalia. Look at what they are doing in Yemen. So indeed, if they were not involved in this escapade, nobody would seek to bring them in. To the extent that they are involved, they are part of the equation.
Okay.
Yes. And Africans are justified in discussing them.
Now, do we then settle for peace through military means in Africa?
Well, lasting peace, we believe, will be a product of a number of things. Popular participation in the search for peace, which means that you need to find inclusive processes by which everybody has got a place at the table. This was demonstrated in the case of South Africa's transition from apartheid to democracy. The aftermath of the genocide in Rwanda, a very innovative process known as Gacaca, which involved the perpetrators of violence and the victims coming together to find a peaceful path to a common future. Now, I'm saying Africa has got many innovative precedents that indeed need to be assimilated as learnings in this search for a global search for peace.
Dr. Mfamadi, thank you very much for your time. There were tweets here. Let me just quickly go through them where some of our viewers are saying the ICC should be renamed Africa Criminal Court. ICC has good intentions but lacks balance to be called a global court. That's Kingsley Ibokete or King Ubong. And Spumle says South African government did the right thing by not arresting al-Bashir here. Nonetheless, al-Bashir is a mass murderer. But that was all we had time for today, and that was question time from me and the crew. Have yourself a wonderful time. Goodbye.